Hello and welcome. We're happy to join you virtually at VivaTech this week. Welcome everybody. We're here with a distinguished panel to talk about deep tech and quantum computing. Each of us here has been vaccinated or tested, so we're all delighted to be without masks, even if just briefly. This is a very interesting subject, I think. Deep tech in general has become a major theme in Europe, in France, here in Paris, as governments and entrepreneurs begin to really explore the potential for scientific-based startups and some of the breakthrough innovation we've started to see in this sector. And so we've seen growing investment, growing support for this kind of sector. Today we're going to focus in a little bit more on quantum computing. And so if I could ask each of you just to introduce yourself. We'll start at the end with Thomas.
So, I'm Thomas Fauvel, working for Choose Paris Region, the economic development agency of the Paris region. I'm in charge of the deep tech industry practice and happy to be here.
Hi, my name is Jordanis Kerenidis. I am a research director for CNRS. I have been working on quantum computing for more than 20 years ago, way before we had these amazing panels as we have nowadays. I did my studies in Berkeley, then I was at MIT, and then I arrived in Paris in 2006. And for the last couple of years, I'm working also with QCWare France, which is a quantum startup in the ecosystem.
And I'm Hélène. I'm the head of the Global Open Innovation Network. The Global Open Innovation Network is a Choose Paris Region initiative to connect large corporations based in Paris region with international tech and fast-growing companies wanted to expand their business and find new business opportunities in Paris region.
Great. Well, again, welcome to everybody. Thanks for being with us today. So, Thomas, I want to come back to you because deep tech is exciting because there's so much potential there for real game-changing innovations. It's such a broad sector. So how do you think of deep tech?
Yeah, I'm working with deep tech companies every day. We support international companies willing to set up here. And I'm in charge of these specific companies that have specific needs. Deep tech businesses must be ready for a long journey, and they must have a lot of cash because they are the kind of business that will have to create its own market with a disruptive technology that nobody expects. So it's really hard, but we have a strong ecosystem here that we will introduce today. It's a mix of talent, academics, and also, of course, clients with many businesses.
And then, you know, if we're focusing on Paris, the Paris region as kind of an example more broadly of how this dynamic is working in France and Europe, how big of a priority has deep tech become for the Paris region in terms of your focus? Because obviously, I mean, Paris, there's so many different industries, so much different potential, even just in tech. So how much emphasis now is there on deep tech here?
As you said, there are lots of potential, but it's also a very forward-thinking region which is very visionary. Since 2018, we have an AI plan, talking about AI, one of the first deep tech that has been supported. And since last year, we have a regional support for quantum technologies, which is far ahead of any national support.
That's great. Well, let me just clarify one point you just made, because I'm aware that France, of course, has a national plan, as you mentioned. So the region has developed its own sort of supplemental, more specific plan for quantum?
Yes.
Complements that national plan?
Even before this national plan, it's a very close to the market support. So maybe Jordanis will speak about that better than me.
Yes, we are working with quite a few customers from the region, and yeah, what we have seen, I have worked personally on the national plant, and what was clear is that a large part of this ecosystem is actually in the Paris region. 2 out of the 3 hubs that we kind of identified in France were in Paris Center and Paris-Saclay. So this was very important for us that the region as well gets involved, and they have been in an extremely good and interesting and powerful way in this quantum disruptive technology. And we initiated a program together with the region where the main goal was to help the ecosystem that is very vibrant. So we started with these proof of concept projects that we call them. The first ones, the region financed 3 such projects between startups that are based in the Paris region, including mine, the QCWare France, but also startups like Pascal and Qubit Pharmaceuticals. And the point of this proof of concepts was to make these startups work together with partners which are like big groups like Total or EDF or other big groups in France that have been some of the pioneers in getting involved in quantum technologies. And for our particular case, the project that we are doing with Total, indeed, which is financed by the region, is an optimization problem. Because maybe one comment that I wanted to make is that quantum computing is not just a faster processor. So it's not like that we will continue to do and we'll continue to solve all our problems the same way. It's just they will be faster. It's a fundamentally different way of trying to solve problems. And for that, we need to get together, the big groups that have the use cases and the industrial expertise, academics that have been working on quantum technologies for a very long time now, and startups to create this ecosystem to really try and understand what are the applications of quantum technologies and how can we take this disruptive potential into a reality.
Well, I think that's an interesting example of what Thomas was saying earlier, that you're doing the research and you're trying to really refine the technology to make it market ready, while you're also trying to figure out what the market will be, so the corporates help you do that. So you're sort of running in 2 races in parallel. Hélène, if I can come to you then, you run the Open Innovation Network. You gave us a little introduction to that before, but can you kind of expand on then how that works?
Yeah.
System?
So every year we organize about 1,200 one-to-one meetings between those large corporations and startups. So it's a great opportunity for startups to pitch their solution and to start to discuss with the large corporates. And today in France, every large corporate is involved in open innovation because, of course, they are convinced that partnering with deep tech startup or scale up is very useful when you want to accelerate your business or when you want to enter new markets.
And so obviously we have one example here that we've just heard about. Are there other examples that you look at as kind of being emblematic of that?
Yeah, I can tell you about an example. I won't tell you any secret. Everything is on the web. It's a startup called QCWare, and it's a US startup. We first met this startup in San Francisco, and they attended a tech meeting there, and they pitched their solution, and we started to connect them with large corporates. And then they came to Paris and pitched on other tech meetings because they were developing connected headsets for industrial workers. And during this tech meeting in Paris, they met Cisco, and they decided to continue the discussion, and they joined the acceleration program of Cisco in Paris. And a few months later, they decided to develop a prototype together, a prototype of voice-activated remote collaboration headset. And in 2018, Cisco invited this US startup on VivaTech to showcase the prototype. So it was a great opportunity for the startup to access, to gain visibility. And and to engage also with the tech community. And in 2020, they signed new contracts, new partnerships with Total Energy and with Stellantis.
And suddenly you have a global partner who's
Yeah.
helping you really think globally.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, that also suggests another important pillar here, which is the academic research community. Thomas, let me first come back to you. In terms of the role then, we've heard about government, and I always tell people that, to understand how things work in France, you have to understand that the government plays an active role in facilitating these things, both encouraging and supporting startups. We've heard about corporates and, of course, the regional government. But academic and research is frequently something that we hear in this area as being a real asset, why DeepTech is interesting at this moment. So what role does that play? What are you seeing happening in terms of the academic community and startups?
Excellent question, because as we are talking about deep tech companies, deep tech business, the core team of each deep tech company is and remain very close to the academic world. It's a question of necessity. They need this contact because they are developing disruptive technologies that needs to be confronted to the excellence of research and back to the market and so on. Paris-Saclay is one of them, and maybe a top one, because it gathers 15% of the whole French research capacities, and something around 30% of the quantum research in France. That's no coincidence if Quandela or Pascal are based on the Paris-Saclay plateau. Jordanis, you chose Paris for that kind of reasons too.
I mean, QCWare started in 2014. A few years later, it was obvious that we should have a company in Europe with a large part of the R&D actually happening in Europe. And the question was where? So there was a discussion there, and what was obvious is that really Paris was the best place to be. And it was the best place to be both because there is an amazing talent in the universities around Paris. There is an ecosystem that was starting to get created with companies like Pascal or Quantella or Alice and Bob or Sedu, C12. So all these small startups, but also big groups that were there from the very beginning. Like Total has been there from the very beginning, Airbus has been there from the very beginning. So somehow Paris made sense for many reasons. And it's also true that almost more than half of our clients are actually European companies. So it was obvious for us to be in Europe, and having the headquarters in Paris was also the right thing to do, and we're very happy to continue this way.
You mentioned a little bit about that support from the government, from the region. Coming from Silicon Valley, I can say when we think, and you'll appreciate this, when we say the government, people generally will say, oh no, just keep them away from me.
Yeah.
And so was it hard to sort of make the case that, hey, not only should you not be afraid of the government, but they can actually be a partner and help facilitate what's happening? Was that easy to sell to colleagues back in the US, or did that take some convincing?
I think it's something that they were not totally aware of, that these programs actually exist. But the moment you look at these programs, you can see that they're very advantageous. More people and more startups, as you say, should come.
So some of the relationships you had, there's enough happening here that these corporates are also willing to come directly to you, or they're open to those conversations. Well, go ahead.
No, just that the moment you start having the first projects like the one with Total, and this is where the region is really helping, the moment that it gets out there that there are big groups who are interested in investing, there are also startups that can partner with them and make something great together, then it becomes much more easier for us also to get more contacts and more contacts and contracts with other people, because you need someone to start, and this is where the region can help. It's about kickstarting the ecosystem.
Yeah. Well, Hélène, then in terms of growing the Open Innovation Network, are you finding that corporates now are just coming to you, they've heard about it, or is it a case still of you having to go to them and say, this is really critical for your business. You need to be active, making these connections, making these partnerships. We can help you do that.
In fact, most of the large corporates we are working with, we started, I guess 4 years ago. So we really develop a partnership with them. So they know what we can bring, but what we do, and once again, thanks to our international ecosystem in US, China, and different places in Europe, we can find I would say, the best startups or scale-ups depending their needs.
Well, Thomas, you sort of referenced this at the very beginning, but in terms of building these types of startups, you have to have a long-term view of how that's going to happen. I understand the region provides some financial support along the way. And then do you also facilitate introductions to the venture capital community or other, there's a growing range of financing options these days. So do you guys play a role in that as well?
Yes, we help international companies like QCWare to decipher these sometimes quite complex system. It's complex maybe because it is generous, but anyway, the system support at different steps of at different stage of development of the company, and we have innovation support. And at regional or national level. Don't worry, I won't make a whole course about financing, but just to tell you that you have these subsidies and grants for innovation projects. Then, in parallel, you can have access to the national research tax credit. And these both are compatible. Some weeks ago, there was a Series D, something amazing with 500 million euros, which makes France really a tech nation, a startup nation, and that's a whole French tech community that is going this way.
No, I think as you said, there is VC money, there is an appetite to invest. On our side, we're trying to be prudent on how we raise money, because as we said, quantum technology is a disruptive technology, is deep tech, and it still needs time to get to the point of creating the market and actually having the applications.
Is there a way to kind of sum up overall the experience? Has it, my sense has been a positive one, but are there particular opportunities that you're excited about here? Were there particular challenges, even with all the welcome and support that you found,
To me, the biggest change was actually going from being an academic to being someone working and actually, directing a startup. And this is not an obvious step to take. The mentality is changing a lot. And we see it from the fact that there are many more startups that are getting created from scientists, from CNRS, from the universities, from INRIA, both in quantum but in many other technologies like in AI and blockchain and all of these. So I think the mentality has changed. The laws have also changed. It is easier to do it now than it was before. So in my case, for example, we managed to have between CNRS and QCWare and myself, we arranged this so that I keep my CNRS position, which gives me still access to my students, to my grants, to my lab, right? And at the same time, CNRS has made me available to work for QCWare, for the startup. So I think this is important to kind of simplify the jump, because it is a jump from being an academic to having a startup. And from the point of view when we started to have the startup, I think we have been so well accompanied by the region, by BPI France, by all these people that are really make an effort to make it successful, and we are extremely happy about that. And it has been maybe easier than I thought it would be.
Well, I want to thank all three of you for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you all for joining us for this time. Enjoy VivaTech and be safe.